All right then, first one, you got to find the median and you need to find the mode. And what they already do is give you the mean. What it tells you is the mean of these 10 people equals £280 per week. But one of these people earns 1,000 and 9 are identical. So the first thing you need to do is find out, well, what does all of their money add up to? And to calculate the mean, what we would have done is add them all up. So we add up the 10 people and then we divide by 10 because there are 10 people there. So the first thing you need to recognize is, well, if 10 people had a mean of 280, the only way I could find out what they add up to is if I done 10 times the £280 per week. So that's the first thing I've done for 1 mark. 10 times 280 is £2,800. So that's what all of the 10 people's wages added up to. Now I know that, well, I can take off £1,000 per week because that is what one of them earned. So 2,800 take away the 1,000, which I've done here. Okay, but then once I take away the 2,800 and the 1,000, I need to then divide by 9. So I've laid it out slightly different by here. It's a little bit quicker. What you could have done is taken it away first, which is 1,800, then done 1,800 divided by 9 in a bus stop. Well, if you don't need to use a bus stop, you do 9 into 18 goes twice, 2 zeros after. That's where my £200 come from, okay? Now, for the median and the mode, what you do need to know is that they would be written in order. Well, obviously, the 9 other people had 200 and the 9 other people had 200 again. So for the median and the mode, it has to be 200 for both. Okay, so a little bit tricky, all right? 1 mark for multiplying, 1 mark for taking away the 1,000 and trying to divide by 9. Your third mark for showing £200 per week, and then that's obviously your answer for both of them there. Okay, for this question, although it's only 1 mark, the average wage of people working at Dragon Fitness is most typically, well, why would it be most typically 200? Obviously, because the 9 people out of 10 earned that. Now, what you need to be is a bit more specific. So what I've written is, because the mean is affected by one person's larger salary, most people earn 200, which is pretty much the same as what I've said, but you can also get away with the mode gives the most common or the median gives the middle value. So just remember, quote what those words actually mean for 1 mark. Okay, guys, first thing you need to do is make sense of all this information. I'm going to cut it off there because this is going to, and this is going to be returning. So instantly you know the difference between them and it's not as overwhelming. What we do know is that if you're traveling from Rhyl and you've got to end up here in Blaenau Festiniog, I reckon that's good pronunciation for me. And obviously you've got to change at Llandudno and then on the way back, hence why you start here and end up back at Rhyl. So the question down the bottom, the first one, if Caris leaves Rhyl after 9 a.m, what is the earliest possible time at which she could arrive at Blaenau? So if she leaves Rhyl after 9 a.m, that there is the first train you can get, the 9:27, because that's the first one after 9. That arrives at Llandudno at 9:43. So if you go to 9:43, we know we've got to leave after 9:43 at Llandudno, which is here at 10:28. So what time does that arrive? Well, that should be 11:30 in the morning. 1 mark for that there. Okay, for this question here, it's pretty much just carrying on from the last one. You know which train she could have, the earliest possible one she could have got, but what I'm hoping you notice is there's quite a gap when she had to wait. So on this question, all it's saying is how long will she have to wait for a connecting train, because she would like to spend the least possible time, which makes sense. You don't want to be standing between the two waiting for ages. So if we go back and look at the same sheet as what we just had, then what we do know is the train we said she was going to get was the 9:27 train, 9:43. But the next one wasn't until 10:28. So can I actually get the later train? Well, the 9:57 train arrives at 10:16. And is that enough time for me to get the 10:28 train? Yes, it is. So the gap between 10:16 and 10:28 is actually going to be a 12-minute period. Okay, that's 1 mark there for that. Okay guys, for this one, she's planning her journey back. She's going to be out there by 5 p.m. How much time in minutes and hours will it take her to travel back? But that's it. It says from the time she leaves. So it's really important you recognise the word leaves here. Not the time she arrives at the station, which is 5 p.m. It's the time she leaves, okay? Really important you don't make an error there. To the time that she gets back at Rill. So this time, we're not looking at the top half of it. This is now redundant because she's coming back. So we're looking at the bottom bit, okay? Now she's going to get there for 5 o'clock. Well, that one's obviously too late, so that's gone. Don't need to worry about that one. So this is the train she's going to get on. What time does that train get to Llandudno? Well, it arrives at 18:35, and it tells us that it's a 58-minute train. So that's obviously handy because we need to know that. We need to find out the total time. She then, if she arrives at 17:37, sorry, I lie. She arrives at 18:35. The 18:39 train is a bit tight, but she does have 4 minutes to get on it. Would be the next time she gets there, and that's a 16-minute journey. So we need to know that's 16 minutes as well, but don't forget there's a slight gap between the 39 and the 35. So also 2 marks available here for your layout, so get those 2 bonus marks. First thing I've written there is the parts at the one we just said, which is a 58-minute journey, so that's lovely. Then the next one arrives 18:35. There's a wait of 4 minutes. So where's that come from? Well, that's between there and there, which we did just discuss. And then the last bit arrives at Rill. Duration is only a 16-minute train. So what am I going to do now? Well, I'm going to add these up. Remember the question said hours and minutes. So I've got 3 marks there. Sorry, 2 marks. Add them up. Okay. It's going to get me my 3rd mark. And then my final answer of 1 hour 18. 1 hour and 18 minutes. Okay. Next question then. Delays are on the train. A delay may cause carriages to miss a connecting train on the way home. Well, we did say 4 minutes wasn't very long. If this happens, at what time will carriages arrive back? You may assume that carriages misses only 1 train. So if we go back to here, if she misses this train, she actually ends up getting this one. So what time will she get back now? Well, as you can see, 12 minutes past 7 in the afternoon, which is there. Okay. Explain how you decided on your answer. Well, all I've written is, if Caris misses the 18:39 train, she will catch the 18:53 train. Right, so I've just stated the obvious, okay? Okay, guys, this one's quite it's quite a nice question, actually. It's quite easy. So what I've done is, I've noticed room 1 and 2 is doubles, 3 and 4 are twins, and then 5 and 6, sorry, you can't see, 5 and 6 are singles. So what I've done before starting to decide where they went, I just made it a bit easier for myself, and I wrote it on the top. So 1 and 2 doubles, 3 and 4 twins, and 5 and 6 singles. Then all I've done is put them in. So let's have a look how I've done it. Okay. Sasha, and I'll just go through from the first sentence. Sasha and Mia want to share a twin room for the 6th and the 7th. Have I got that in there? Well, twins can, so you can have it in either the 3 or the 4. Okay. I've gone for 3, 6 and 7th. Cracking. That's in there. That's done. Mr. and Mrs. Jones want a double room for the 5th. So doubles here. Mr. and Mrs. Jones have just won it for the 5th. There we are. 5th of July. That's in there. Take that off. Flavia wants a single room for the 5th and 6th. So singles are on the end. Flavia, 5th and 6th. Lovely jubbly. Done that. Mr. and Mrs. Evans want a double room for themselves. So we'll do the double room first. And that's for the dates of the 5th, the 6th and the 7th. So that's why they've fully taken this block. But it also says a twin room for their sons, Molly and Ivan. So twin rooms for Morris. Sorry, not Morris. Not Molly. And that's done. And then last 2 bullet points. Their daughter Helith will join them on the 6th and the 7th. So 6th and 7th, that's done. And finally, Mr. and Mrs. Igorson want a double room for the 6th and the 7th. And the double room, 6th and the 7th, there was only that one there spare. So obviously you could have flipped them, they could have been the other way, but they'd have to follow the same suit. Rightio. Thomas buys a number of items from a market store. 2 £20 notes and the £10 notes mean he has 50 quid. Okay, that's the first thing I've done. Okay, now I'm going to just ignore all my workings for now, and I'm just going to shoot down to the next part, because all this information here is just what it costs. It says the owner then uses a calculator to add these costs up individually and gives Thomas 75 pence change. Without the use of a calculator, how could Thomas check the calculation using an efficient method? Now, you must show all your workings. So you know you've got to actually do some adding and subtracting here. There's also 4 marks available, so that gives it away. So I'm hoping what you all thought is I'll round the numbers. And that's what I've done here. So I've rounded the cereal bars to £1, and then I've done 7 times £1. Okay, so this is going to get you 1 mark for rounding. I've done £4 for the socks, so that's got me £20 because I bought 5 of them. And then I've rounded £7.49 to £7.50 and I've times by 3 because I bought obviously 3 sweaters. Okay, in total that's £22.50 here, £20 here, and £7 here. Now I do actually need to find the correct answer. So the obvious thing to do now between the 7, the 4, that's a lie, the 20, between the 7, the 20, and the £22.50 is add them up, which is what I've done here. So this is just a slightly neater way of showing it. £49.50, okay? So that's going to get you all the way to 3 out of 4 marks, guys. But all we need to do is actually find out what the correct answer was. So what we need to remember now is I rounded it up. Okay, so I'm going to make a little note here. I rounded up this by 1 penny. I rounded this up by 5 pennies, and I rounded this up by 1 penny. And obviously you've done it 7 times here, 5 times here, and 3 times here. So if we just have a look at my workings, why have I done 7 times a penny? Well, that's because there were 7 cereal bars at 1p extra. So I know I've got to now take this extra 7p off. There was 5 pairs of socks, 5p extra, and 3 jumpers at 1p extra. So although I have my £49.50, what I need to take away from that is the 7, the 25, and the 3p. Okay. By doing so, that is going to take me down to £49.15. Okay. But remember, the question said 75p change. So moving on to the next question, was it 75 pence? Well, no, the difference actually from 50 quid and the £49.15 is going to be 85p. So that is going to get you your extra mark. Okay, guys, for this one, Billy and Sean both completed a survey, collected leaves from a number of trees, and decided to measure them. Okay, this is what they've agreed on. So why have they both agreed on these decisions about measuring the leaves? Well, the obvious one, if it's ever collecting data, it's going to be for it to be consistent, or for there to be a fair comparison, or complete the survey the same way. Okay, you want it to be fair, guys. Billy measured the length and the width of each leaf he had collected. Sean did the same. They displayed their lengths and widths of their leaves on separate scatter diagrams. Billy's is shown below, and then Sean's is opposite. So this one's Billy's. Billy's is all over the shop, to be fair. No correlation whatsoever. However, if we have a look at hide that. If we have a look at Sean's has got all sorts less going on. It's a lot closer together. It definitely has a correlation. It's a positive one. Okay, don't know if I need that yet, but that's the first thing I'm thinking. Let's have a little browse. Who found the longest leaf? So why have we gone for Sean? So we'll stick with Sean now. Well, longest is obviously here. This is the longest bit, so we need to look for the one with the highest up, and that one there is by far the highest. Okay, write down the length of this leaf. Well, it's 10.4. So again, make sure you're really, really careful with your scale. Use a ruler if you have to. That one is 1, 2 up, hence why it's 10.24. How do you know it's going up in 0.2s though? Well, be careful, guys. Between 8 and 10 would be 9. There would be 7. There would be 5. So please do not make a mistake with your scale. It's a very good idea to do this. Put numbers in the middle, and then hopefully you'd recognize it's going up in 0.2s. Okay, so that's the first one. 1 mark, unfortunately, for both. Correct. Only one of the 2 boys collected all of his leaves from the same tree. Who was this? well, quite clearly it's going to be Sean, because they're, what's your reason? Well, look at them. They've got to be from the same tree because they're all very, very similar. Okay. Shown by the correlation, all right? So you could have even written because it's a positive correlation. That's what I'd be writing. Guarantee the marks, show off to that examiner. Draw a line of best fit on Sean's scatter diagram. Well, as you can see, I've already done that. Now, a line of best fit has to best fit all of these. I would make sure once you've done it, there is roughly half either side of the line. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, that's pretty much a halfway split. So 1 mark for that, drawing it with a ruler. Sean realizes he has one more leaf that he has not included in the scatter diagram. The leaf is damaged in such a way that Sean cannot measure its width, but the length of the leaf is 8.5. So 8.5, I'm going to go to the length of 8.5, which is up here. Remember, it is not in between 8 and 10. It's got to be by there. I'm going to use my ruler, draw a straight line across and down. And it's taken me to just above 7.1. Okay. What did I go for? Yep, 7.1 is what I went for. Obviously, you can have something slightly different. Quite a range of answers there. But it's all about how good your line of best fit is. Okay, guys, make sure you read the information. It's all about this bit here. This only makes 4 pancakes. On this first question, it wants you to find out how much plain flour is needed to make 48. Then you've got to give it in ounces. So we're going to need this information after. But first things first, what do times 4 by to get me to 48? Well, obviously 12, okay? So first thing I've done is recognize need to make 12 batches of 48 pancakes. So if you've got 12 written somewhere, you get a mark. 55, why have I gone 55? Because it only wants us to find out the flour, and the flour is obviously 55 at the top. If I just zoom out with it, there's flour, 55 times 12. Guys, use Napier's bones to do that. Do not do it without a calculator. Don't do it with a calculator. This is a non-calculated paper. 660 grams of flour is what I need, okay? But what I now got to do is change that to ounces, okay? So what you know is 4 ounces is approximately 110 grams. So we need to get 110 grams up to 660 grams. And what you can see, if you write it down the way I've written there, it's actually quite nice. 110 would get you up to 660 exactly 6 times. So I've also got to multiply the 4 by 6 to get me the answer of 24 fluid ounces, okay? Now it's entirely, sorry, not fluid ounces, just normal ounces. It's entirely up to you, whichever way you've done it, but as long as you've got 24, that's the correct answer. All right then, next question. Owen works in a kitchen. He uses the recipe information for the pancakes shown above. He has measured out the plain flour, butter, and placed them and the milk in a large bowl with the eggs. Owen measures 150 fluid ounces of water to add to his other pancake ingredients. So we're working backwards now. So he measures this much water. So what we first need to do is find out what this water is here, but not in ounces, because the question all the way at the top actually says the water is in milliliters, okay? So that's the first thing we need to do. So the first thing I've done is I've gone for the bit at the top, which says 25 ml of milk or water is approximately 1 ounce. And if I know I've got 150, I'm going to start by doing 150 times by 25. Okay, so I've written it slightly different here. 1 fluid ounce equals 25 ml, so I'll multiply by 150 to find out what that is in milliliters. So again, use Napier's bones, 3,750 milliliters. Now I've done that, great. What am I going to do? This bit's a little bit trickier to see the way I've written it here, but where has the 37.5 come from? Well, the 37.5 milliliters of water is what is needed to make 4 pancakes. And what I've noticed is, well, actually, 37.5, 3,750, they're exactly the same number. So what you could have thought is, what do I multiply 37.5 by to get me there? Okay, this is just a different way of writing it down, and it's 100. So that means you need 100 lots of, so that going to get another mark for that there. It's your second mark. you need 100 lots of water to make 4 pancakes. So you've now actually got to do 4 times 100, okay? So it's actually 400 pancakes. A little bit tricky, guys, but I expect you to get at least 1 mark for times in here, okay? And then it's all about noticing 100 is the difference between these two, okay? So they are quite nice numbers, albeit a decimal there. Okay, guys, for this one, which one's better value for money? I'm hoping you know by now, value for money, you've got to make the quantity the same. So we could get higher. You could make them both 2,400 mil. Might be a number which you can make them easier than that, which is bigger. But for me personally, I always go to 100 mil if it's in relation to this. So I start with a large bottle. How have I got it to 100 mil? Well, I know 800 mil equals £1.28. So I divide by 8 to find 100 mil. Again, use your bus stop, guys. £1.28 divided by 8 is 16 pence, okay? Just show you a bus stop here really quickly if you need me to with decimals. £1.28. You just put them in, line the decimals up. We're dividing by 8 to find 100 mil. 8 into 1 doesn't go, so 0 carry the 1. 8 into 12 goes once, remaining to 4. And 8 into 48, 6 times, okay? 16p. Same thing for the next one, but we divide by 3. Okay, which is 15p, but easier to divide that one. Now we've compared them, because they're both 100 mil. Which one's better value for money? Quite clearly, the small bottle by 1 pence. Okay, and that's going to get you the rest of your marks, okay, for showing that this one is cheaper, all right? So 1 mark for trying to make the quantity the same, and then 1 mark for each one, 4th mark for showing which one's best value for money. Okay, guys, this one is really, really easy. If you know your conversions, there's 10 millimeters in a centimeter, 100 centimeters in a meter. You have to know that. Okay, guys, can't just expect that to be given to you. So what have I got to do? Well, I change to get millimeters all the way to meters. I divide by 10 first to change it to centimeters because there's 10 millimeters in a centimeter. Then I divide by 100 because there's 100 centimeters in a meter. 4.5, 1 mark. Right, the next one. Why have I written area? Well, I say it all the time. If something is being covered, it is inside the shape, which means it's area. But there's also this bit here. Meters squared, okay? It gives it away. Now, because it says calculate the area, and the word area, because it says calculate the area of the top surface worktop in meters squared, and this is in millimeters, you know you've got to change these first. So again, it's going back to this. Divide by 10 and divide by 100, okay? So if I divided this by 10 and then 100, I lose 1 0, then another 2, so that's 3. I divide this by 10, that goes to 70, then by 100 again, it goes to 0.7, okay? Now to find the area, we do length times width or base times height because it's a rectangle. So I'm actually doing 3 times 0.7. You have to change them at the beginning, you cannot change them at the end because you get a wrong answer. 3 times 0.7, or 3 times 7 is 21. The number after decimal point in the question. 1 number after decimal point in the answer, okay? A kitchen cupboard is in the shape of a cuboid. Its capacity is 420,000 centimeters cubed. Capacity, guys, is the volume, all right? It's the volume, it's everything inside. And what gives that away? The cubed bit, okay? Internally, the cupboard measures 60 by 70. Calculate the height. So if you need a picture to help you, just quickly sketch a cuboid. So I sketch a cuboid like so, or a cube that looks more like. We know it's 60 wide, we know it's 70 deep, but what we don't know is the height. How do you find the volume of the cuboid? You multiply the 3 lengths together. So 60 times 70 times something you don't know gets you all the way up here. So you're going to get 1 mark for showing that, and 1 mark for trying to multiply 60 by 70, okay? So 60 times 70 gives me 42, so the 6 and 7 is 42, 2 zeros after, so 4,200. 4,200 times what gets me here? Well, I've added 2 zeros, so obviously I've times by 100. So the height has to be 100 centimeters. Okay then, guys, I'll always talk about triggers. What can trigger a topic here? Well, this bit's in bold and it says the worktop measure is 301 centimeters correct to the nearest. This is upper and lower bounds, okay? Whenever you see something that's been measured to the nearest one, or the nearest whatever, and the nearest here, please remember that you need to find out how small or how big it could have been. And it's always, whatever it's been rounded to, halved. And then you take it away or add it on. So 0.5 centimeters is what I would subtract or add to this length. And on this one here, for the whole length of the wall, half of 5, so I'll do that over here. Half of 5 centimeters would be 2.5 centimeters, and you would add or subtract that number off the size of the wall. Question is saying, explain why this might have happened. So why did it not fit? Okay, why did it not fit? So you need to assume, or if you think about it, how could it not have fit? Well, it would not fit if the wall was actually a little bit smaller than you thought, and the 2 cupboards you bought at the top here were actually both a little bit bigger than he thought. So what we need to do is prove that that doesn't fit. So you're always going to get marks just for writing your upper and lower bounds, which is what I've told my class. I've told them, even if you don't know what to do, find the upper and lower bounds. So the first thing I've done here is find the upper bound of the worktop. So where did the 301.5 come from? Well, I've done it here. I halved. Remember, you always halve what's rounded to. And then I've taken it away and added it on from the original length of 301. Okay, so the biggest length it is that. The smallest length is that. I've then done the same for the wall. But this time I added on 2.5. Again, it came from here, just up in the corner. So that is the biggest length, that is the smallest length. But then, as I just stated, how could it not fit? Well, you have to assume that the two worktops you bought are their biggest length. So this is where your next marks come from. So you add in the 2 together, which gives me 603 centimeters. And if you look above here, the wall, when it's at its smallest, is 602. So it doesn't fit. It's only a very small gap of 0.5 centimeters, which is roughly that big. But this is the greater than the lower bound of the wall, so the worktops would not fit, and as I just said, by 0.5 centimeters. So it's for showing the 0.5 centimeters your final mark. Okay, guys, bit of a weird one. Explain how this could be true. There's no numbers given on it, so because there's no numbers given on either one, you don't know whether this is true or not. So if it said, explain why this couldn't be true, you would obviously say, because you have no idea how many men and women there are who bought computers in each of these companies. So if we explain how it could be true, well, the only way it could be true is if both pie charts represented the exact same number of people in total. Okay, so anything along those lines, as if both pie charts were equal and they equaled the same amount of people. The next one says, Lucy sees a headline, sales of desktops, computers steady falling. So if it's falling, we know something's going down. All right, so why is it this one? If they're steadily falling, okay, then obviously it's a slow decline. Can't be any of these. Okay, I could see why you might think it's that one, but if it's steadily, then it's going at the same rate. Okay, guys, for this one, where have I got the answer of? Where have I got the answer of 45.4? Well, if you look at the picture, one of them is 13.4, but then all of the others are 1.6. So what you need to recognize is that the first one here, the first carton would be 13.4, but the others are going to be, which is 20 left over, because it's 21. 20 times 1.6. 20 times 1.6 is 32, okay? You could do 2 times 16, which is 32, it's the same thing. And then you've got to add on 13.4 after. 13.4 added to 32 would give you the 45.4. Okay, for this one then, guys, I'm going to show you is 61.4 in total. It does say you can form an equation, but it also says or otherwise. I think the easiest way, rather than showing you the equation way, which is going to blow your minds, I think, let's go with the one which makes more sense. So I know that the bottom one on this, out of this 61.4, the bottom one I'm going to take away first. So I'm going to take away 13.4 from it. Again, use your column method if you have to, but that leaves you with 48 centimeters, okay? So if I'm going to make a little note here, that one is gone, okay? Because I took off the bottom one, so one of them is gone. I've now got 48 of them left. What I do know is every single one after that, so every single one after that is going to be equal to 1.6. So I got to find out how many 1.6s get me up to 48. So I could do 48 divided by 1.6, or I could just do a bit of multiplication instead. 10 of them would equal 16 centimeters. Now I'm thinking, right, can I get that to 48? Well, if you don't recognize it by now, you could just add another 16 on, which would give me 32. So 20 of them would be 32. Well, what can I get? What can I add to 32 to give me 48? You could add another 16. So 48 of them is going to be another 10 on top. So 48 of them would be 30. But that's not your final answer for your third mark, guys. Remember, I had to make a note up here that I took one away. I took off the bottom one, 30.4. So my actual answer is going to be the 30 plus the 1, which is 31 of them in total. Okay? Okay. A lot going on here because I've already drawn them on there. But what we're going to do first is just try and ignore what I've done. And I'll talk you through the first question at the top. It says, by road... All right, okay, and I'm going to ignore my 1.3 as well. By road, White Castle is 11 kilometers from Skenrith. Complete the sentence below. The map scale is approximately 1 centimeter to represent. So we know it's 11 kilometers from White Castle to Skenrith. So all I'm going to do, yours would be slightly different if this photocopied smaller. If I measure the distance between here and here, the straight distance, it's actually 8 centimeters on mine. So what I would do in an exam is I would do 11 kilometers, because that's what it said, divided by 8 centimeters, because the map scale has got to be written in 1 centimeter. So again, how can you do that in a bus stop? A couple of zeros, 8 into 11 once, remainder 3. 8 into 30 goes, it's been a long week, of course, and then 8 into 60 is going to be 7 times remainder 4, and then 5 times. So it's 1.375. Because it's an approximate, you could have just written 1.4 kilometers per centimeter. Okay. Right then, the next question said this bit here. Now, where have I got 64 on 198 from? So let's just go over it slowly. The bearing of Skenrith Castle from White Castle. So that means I need to start at White Castle and measure the angle to Skenrith. So I'm going to zoom right in. I know I've already done it, but I'm going to show you again. First thing you'd have to do is draw a north line from where you're measuring. You always measure from north. That's a real important part. Okay. The next thing is you have to measure in a clockwise direction. Well, you can't measure the angle unless you have drawn the straight line of where you need to go. So that's why I've drawn from there to there. So this is the angle here I need to measure. So if I line it up, 0 is going to go at north, and then you've got to follow the outside numbers because you started at 0, and as you can see, that takes me to 64. If I just move the camera away slightly, 64. Okay. But bearings must always be written as 3 digits, so it's got to be 064. Similarly with the other one, 198, the bearing of White Castle from Grossmont. So the bearing of White Castle from Grossmont. So this time I'm looking up here. Again, you need your north line. Again, you need to join up straight to White Castle. As you can see, this time it's all of this angle around here, which is bigger than 180. Easiest way to do this is measure the opposite way. So if I'm measuring the opposite way, 0 is now on the inside. I can measure all the way around, and you can see it's taken me to, but focusing on the inside numbers this time, it takes me to pretty much in the middle of 160 and 170. All right, if I just try and straighten it up a bit, it's about 164 on this one. So slightly different to the first time I measured it. I would then have to take that away from 360 because all of this together would make me a full circle. Okay, now in an exam, they will give you a bit of leeway. Okay, as you can see, that second time I measured it slightly differently. Okay, but quite a bit of a difference between 195 and 199. Okay. Okay, guys, for this one, it says that it's an equidistance, just means an equal distance. So it's saying that there's a treasure, an equal distance between these two castles and then between these two castles. Now, if I just sketch two castles here for you, like so. An equal distance means you'd have to split straight through the middle of them. So what I'm going to do is just show you how to do that. First thing I would do, my advice would be split between the two places, draw a straight line. You then need to get your compass with a pencil, but make sure they line up. And then to draw a perfect straight line splitting them, you open it to just past halfway. So that's just past halfway. Make sure the sharp point is on the one place you want to go from. And I'm just going to draw half a circle. Okay, this is sometimes known as a rugby ball. I've done that. I'm then going to go the other side, sharp point, do exactly the same thing. Like so. I've drawn my rugby ball. And then where the 2 points of your rugby ball meet, or where the 2 points of the curve touch, it splits this line perfectly down the middle. Okay, so it's really clever. And as you can see, it's roughly an 8 centimeter line, and I've split it 4 centimeters either side. So all I need to do now is that between the two castles, which I did already do, but I'm going to show you again. So I apologize, that's a little bit scruffy. We know it is between, if we have a look, between Grossmont Castle and Skenrith. So if I draw a line between Grossmont and Skenrith, I'll do that now. I then need to split this line in half. So I'm going to go to Skenrith and draw a curve to just pass halfway. And I'm going to go to Grossmont, do the same thing. Remember not to change, remember not to change the compass. So there's my first rugby ball, and I'm going to draw a line straight through there. So I know that it's got to be somewhere on this line. And I'm going to do exactly the same thing for between White Castle and Skenrith. So I'm going to draw a line between White Castle and Skenrith, which I've already done. I need to split this line in half. Again, I open my compass to pass halfway. Draw half a rugby ball. I apologise, there's a lot going on, but it's more about remembering how to use the rugby ball. The other side. That's where my rugby ball is met. I'm going to split it straight down the middle, and as you can see, I've just ended up drawing over lines which were already there, and that is where my treasure is. Okay, a little bit tricky, but definitely something we can have a go at. Okay, this one, quite a nice one. It's just about how good your written methods are. Start with a standing charge of £15, so you have to pay that. You add a £10 fee for every complete hour, additional fee of 20p for every minute, then multiply the total charge by 2 equals the final charge. So let's have a look. 2 hours and a quarter. You could write it all down in one working like so, or the easiest way to do it, my advice would be, I would do 15 and then I would add that to 10 times 2. Okay, 15 add the 10 times 2 is the £20 for the 2 hours. So that's 15 and 20. And then the 0.2, all I've done there is I've changed 20p to 0.2 because that is it in pounds. Okay, I times it by 15 because quarter of an hour is 15 minutes. Okay, if you need to do 20 times 15, I would just do 2 times 15, which is 30, then put the 0 back in, 300 pennies, and 300 pennies is obviously £3. Okay, so that's where that's come from. Add them all up. You've got to add these first before you double it. £38 doubled is 76 quid. Quite a nice question for 1 mark there, guys. I apologise, 1 mark and the other mark, 2 marks in total. Lovely job. Okay, for this one, nice easy mark, I think. It says, why do you think they multiply by 2? Well, they multiply by 2 because there's just 2 of them, okay? There's 2 people working. 2 people need to get paid. Okay, a little bit tricky now, a bit of algebra. Write a formula for working out the final charge. Pounds, T for gardening, that takes H hours and M minutes. Okay, so basically what it's saying is, write something down which would calculate all of this in one. Okay, so let's have a look. What we do know is it's going to be £15 to start off with. Okay, so it's almost going back to what we already done. We will start with £15. Then we're going to add £10 times by H, times by however many hours. So if you've written 10H somewhere, or 10 times H, you get a mark. Why have I put it in brackets? Because you'd have to times that together first, so think of big maths. Similarly with this one, 0.2, this has to be written as 0.2 because this is in pennies. Otherwise you'd have to write 20 times M divided by 100. This is a bit uglier, okay? And again, why is this in brackets? Because I'm going to work it out separately, okay? So let's recap. £15 is what you've got to add on. You've got to multiply however many hours you work by £10. You've got to multiply however many minutes over you work by 20 pence. But you've got to write that in pounds as well. And then once you've done all of that together, the reason why these brackets are here is because naturally you have to add it all first before timesing by 2. Okay, so it's a little bit tricky, but you're going to pick up 1 or 2 marks if you try to write 10H 0.2M. Okay, Yolanda notices there's a problem. They spent 2 hours on gardening for Mr. Reese, 1 hour and 55 minutes. Mr. Reese paid less. So Mr. Reese paid less even though he worked for 2 hours. Well, 2 hours, if it was Mr. Reese, would be £20 exactly. This one's a bit trickier to work out because it's the £10 for the full hour and then 55 minutes times the 20 pence. So we actually need to work out that, and it's probably going to add up to something bigger than the £20. So let's have a look. Explain why. Well, I've done it here, okay, because the minutes charged for 55 minutes, or 20p times 55, again, use Napier's bones if you have to, is actually £11. And if you add the £11 to the £10, it would take you to 21 quid. He ends up paying £1 more, okay? But you had to show that 20p times 55 is going to add up to more than 1 hour. All right then, so remember, if you've got box plots, if I just sketch one by here really quickly. All right, this is going to be the highest value. This is going to be the lowest. This is 1/4. This is the median. And this is 3/4, okay? The bigger the spread, the most difference there is. And I want you to remember, you need to find the interquartile range normally by taking away this value and this value. The range, interquartile range, is the gap between the quarters. So for this first question, which month had the most changeable weather? Well, it's got to be April, okay? But you've got to say why. And it had the largest range because obviously here and here is huge compared to any others, which are really, really small. And it's also got the largest interquartile range because the box is bigger, okay? So you have to say, if you haven't written interquartile range, but you've said April has the largest range, you'll get the mark, but be as specific as possible and say interquartile range. Okay, for this one, guys, to answer all of it, I know I've done it already, but you need, you obviously need to look at the box plots. So if you don't want much rain, the time to visit the island is in. Well, it's got to be one of the lowest, hasn't it? Okay, it's got to be one of the lowest here. So June is right at the bottom. So that's why we've gone with true, because it says in June. The greatest difference in rainfall is between the months of February and March. Let's have a look why we've written false here. So the greatest difference between months. So that means from one month to the next. Well, February and March, as you can see, between February and March, the biggest difference is, if you look at the median values, it's from here to here. It's only a difference of what, 32 and roughly 20, which is roughly a difference of 12. But as you can quite clearly see, the biggest difference between 2 months is here, from April all the way down to May. It's a massive dip between the two. Okay, summertime's coming. So that's why that's false. The interquartile range for May is approximately equal to June. So that means the box has got to be pretty much the same. So in May, that's here, is it pretty much the same size as June? Yeah, it is, true. The range of rainfall, so now you're looking at the highest and the lowest, the very two, top and bottom. The range of rainfall in February is approximately 15. So Feb goes from here to here, this line up there. So it's roughly 30 down to roughly 15. Yes, pretty much 15. Happy with that, true. And the last one, during June, there were more days with greater 7.5 centimetres of rainfall than there were days and less than. So if we're looking at June, 7.5 is going to be roughly here. So 7.5 is going to go all the way across here. 7.5, pretty much there. That's what 7.5 is. If we read it, again, during June, there were more days greater than 7.5. Well, 7.5 is just slightly above. That bit is the median value, the middle. And if that bit's the median value there, that's half of the days in June are less than 7.5. So that's why I've gone with false. I think what's also important to mention, guys, in this question is if you've got 4 of them right, you get 1 out of 2 marks, but you'd need at least 4 correct for 1 out of 2. Okay, right, this one here took me a little bit of time to get my head around. It says in July 2014, the interquartile range was 10 and the range was 40. July isn't on here. Okay, it stops at June. So it's saying, is it possible to say whether July has more or less rainfall than June? Well, when you're looking at the range, you can't, okay? Because if we look at just between May and June, as you can see, from there to there is pretty much the same size as from there to there. The box is pretty much the same width. The box is pretty much the same width up here between all these months, but quite clearly there was a lot less rain in June than in May. But the range would be the same because the range is only the difference between the highest and the lowest, or the difference between the 2 quarters. It's not the median. If we use the median value, you could say there was more or less rainfall. A little bit hard to get your head around. So I did find the range and the interquartile range of June by using my box plot, but it is not possible to say because we don't know the specific values of rainfall, okay? That's what you had to say. Okay, last but most certainly not the least. All right, guys, loads going on here, so let's try and get our heads around it. 2 different European political parties are proposing a change in rules. Okay, so because so that just sets a story, you don't really need it though. It's basically saying how much money are they going to take off you. Now, for you, it would make sense to go with either yellow party or orange party, the one which is going to give you, where you're going to save the most money. You're not going to lose as much tax. Okay, now it tells you here, yellow party, this tells you here what to do, how to calculate it. Then orange party, very similar. Okay, so all I'm going to do is use this information both for yellow party and orange party and compare the 2. 7 marks was going to take me a bit of time. So let's have a little look. Yellow party, if we start with that there. The taxable income equals the gross income minus the personal allowance. So we need to calculate the taxable income. It says here, okay. During the tax year, this person, Janina, gross income is likely to be 55,000. So 55,000 is the gross income. It says gross income, 55,000. So the very first thing you need to do for yellow party, which I'm going to do here, is the 55, because it tells you take them away, the 55,000 euros, take away the personal allowance, which is that much there. So that bit's done. Take away the 5,000. So the money in euros I am left with is £50,000. Okay, that's the money I'm going to deal with. It now says basic rate of tax is 10% on the first 10,000. So this is a little bit tricky, so I'm going to draw a little picture. This 50,000 which is left, okay, all the way up to 50,000, we need to split up. So from 0 up to 10,000, they are only going to take 10% of it off you. Then from 10,000 up to 30,000 euros, they're going to take off you 25%. And then everything you earn over 30,000 up to whatever's left, which is the £50,000, so the euros, okay, they're going to take 50% of it. So we've got to effectively split all these numbers up. So from 0 up to 10,000, they take 10%. So the first thing I need to do is find, or take off, sorry, is find 10% of that, okay? First thing I need to do is find 10% of the 10 grand. So 10% of the 10 grand is obviously going to be £1,000. Okay, so that's the first bit. But now in this next bit, which is a little bit tricky to get your head around, it says everything you earn over 10,000 up to 30,000, well, what's the difference between 10,000 and 30,000? The difference is only 20 grand. So you've only got to find 25%, a quarter of 20 grand, not a quarter of 30 grand, okay? So I'm now going to find 25% of 20 grand, which is going to be £5,000, okay? I've just divided it by, I've just found a quarter, halved it and halved it again. The last bit says they're going to take 50% of your money off you, but only for what you earn over 30. So how much does this person earn over 30? Well, the difference between 30 and 50 is 20 grand again. So I now need to find 50% of 20 grand. Stinking, because that's obviously half, which is 10 grand. So they're going to take 10 grand off you. So to find out how much Yellow Party would take off you for tax, it's going to be the 1,000, add the 5,000, add the 10,000. So in total, if I can spell total, that'd be nice. It's going to be all of these added together. 1,000, 6,000, 16,000. So they would take off you £16,000. Okay, that's Yellow Party. So we've done Yellow Party. Now we're going to do Orange Party. But they got slightly different rules. Taxable income equals gross income take away personal allowance. So it's the same as before. It's going to be the 55,000 because that's what the gross income is. Take away. This time the personal allowance is 10 grand. So they're giving you more for free. So that takes me down to 45,000 euros to deal with. And this time the picture is going to look slightly different. The basic rate of tax, 20% on the first. So again, we need to split up the 45,000 this time, because that's what's left. From 0 up to 20,000, they're going to take off you 20%. And then from everything over that, so the higher rate then is from 20, everything over 20, so that's from here all the way up to the 45, is going to be 40%. So how much is between 0 and 20? Well, that's obviously 20,000. So I need to start by finding 20% of 20,000 euros. Well, 10% would be 2,000, double it be 4,000. Okay, so that's 20%. Now I'm going to do the same for this bit, but be careful. It's 40%, but how much? It's 40% of whatever you earn between 20 and 45. So the gap between 20 and 45 is actually £25,000. Okay, how am I going to do that? Well, I'll probably have to do a bit more than just doing this in my head. So I'll do that below. 10% is going to be 2,500. Okay, so 40% is going to be 4 of them. So 4 lots of 2,500. So if I double it once for 20 grand, that's going to give me 5 grand, and double it again, it's going to give me 10 grand. Okay, so 40%, so that's actually the £10,000 by here. So now all I need to do is add the 10 and the 4. So the total for this one, hopefully I can spell it right this time, is going to be the 10 and the 4, which is 14,000. Okay, so now let's go back to the question. It said which one should we're going to pay the least tax in. Well, 14,000 here. Yellow Party was 16,000. Not much difference, but if you want to, would you rather two grand extra? I know I would. Which one are we going to go for? Okay, so this is all of the workings just kind of crammed in. Which one are we going to go for? 16 grand for Yellow Party, 14 grand for Orange. You'd obviously go for Orange because you'd save £2,000. Okay, a little bit of a long question, but guys, for 7 marks, really get your teeth into it. There is plenty of marks available for you. And then last but certainly not least, plays for a rugby international team. Okay, is a he. Probably thought it was a she. Likely to earn £200,000 during the tax year between 2018 and 19. Without any calculations, explain why Samuli might favour the Orange Party's proposal tax. So why would they potentially go for orange than yellow without any calculation? Because he's going to have a significant proportion of his salary, because he earns way over the cut-off point. 40% of all of that money, basically, what they're saying is 40% of all of that money, you'd rather lose 40% of it than lose 50% in this one, okay?